Hi, I'm Cressida.
I am Manjari.
I am Virginie Litodon. So my research is mostly focused on circular economy, circular business models. To implement a circular economy, then we need collaboration between different actors. And so one of my main research was in the field of plastic industry. And I try to make as much impact as I can.
I work with the 4 different schools in the faculty. I support and contribute towards the projects very much interdisciplinary in nature and require AI and machine learning expertise. So one of my primary research interest is in deepfake detection. Another key area that I am involved in is in the area of algorithmic fairness. I also lead a research project in the organization's System and People School, which focuses on wearable-based sensors to predict mental health risks in young adults. Also, I work with the School of Law for various projects like utilizing machine learning and large language models to search and retrieve patent documents or to identify patterns in the decisions of the court related to or with respect to some legal articles. So overall, my research is strongly interdisciplinary in nature. What about
Interesting.
you?
Wow. Look, we've met before,
Yeah,
but it's really nice to hear about your work. So as co-director of the Revolution Plastics Institute, I'm involved in quite a lot of different types of projects, and our basic mission is to tackle the plastics pollution crisis through inclusive, socially just research and innovation. So I work in different countries around the world, looking at how we can decrease the amount of pollution that's entering the environment. I guess I work on 2 main kind of research strands. One is around plastics and One Health, and the other one is around plastics and sustainable behaviour. And One Health basically means the impact of plastic pollution on humans, animals and the planet. And when it comes to sustainable behaviours, that's kind of encouraging people, whether they're consumers or industry or policymakers, to think about moving up the waste hierarchy, really, if you like, and to think about alternatives that might result in less pollution.
What is it about plastic and health for humans especially? Because we hear a lot on the news, but sometimes I don't know what is real or what is exaggerated.
I think there is some sensationalism around in the way that microplastics in our bodies are reported. You know, it's undoubted, the evidence is most definitely there that microplastics are everywhere we look, pretty much, you know, whether it's the top of Mount Everest or the deepest trench in the ocean or in our own bodies or in placental tissue in our babies, we find microplastics. What we don't yet know very much about is the impact of the actual microplastics, the actual polymers themselves on our health. However, when plastics are made, lots and lots of thousands and thousands of toxic chemicals are used to imbue plastics with the amazing different qualities that plastics have, you know, from being like this through to being the kind of flexible textiles and all sorts of things. So one of the things that we're doing is looking at ways that we can improve the understanding of what those chemicals and what the actual microplastics themselves, how both policymakers and citizens understand what the impacts of those toxic chemicals and microplastics are. And what about the circular economy work that you've done in plastics?
I think there is a lot of misunderstanding and a lack of knowledge of, first of all, what is a circular economy, and because often it's reduced to end of life of a project, like recycling is often synonymous and is reduced to that. And then the second other issue is like partners didn't really know what was the circular business models and then how even to implement it. And then another third key issue was then, okay, once we kind of understand a circular business model design, the how to implement it often requires many actors to work together. And this is then where I realized, okay, there was a major issue was you need to work with a recycling company, waste management companies, and sometimes different cities is different, so they have to involve so local authorities depending how it is organized. I don't know if you heard of that, for example, digital product passport or eco-design for sustainable project regulations. And I think all of this will help even more companies to actually look at circular business models, how does it work, or it's maybe more than just recycling. We need to look at the design of the project, how we make it from the start. And so that's why everything it's kind of have to work together, and I think regulation, companies, benefits, and customers as well wanted to have more maybe sustainable project, more aware about what's going on, these kind of things.
Tracking and traceability are really important factors in creating a successful circular economy. So do you think the work that you do could help with that kind of data tracking? And
we can model the machine learning algorithms to learn the patterns from the data and then utilize it for our specialized tasks. So in my study, we did some of experiments like psychophysics experiments, which involve humans to identify or distinguish some deepfake generated images and videos from the naturally taken or camera-based photographs. What we could understand is humans is very weak in identifying or detecting these deepfake images and videos. And we were able to also provide evidences on the challenges that these deepfake detection models face, where these models are failing. For example, when the images are compressed or when we do some blurring operations on the images, our computation models might be failing. So based on this evidence, we were able to identify what are the most important features that would help the algorithms to withstand these post-processing operations, even in some post-processed images scenarios. And we are also reaching out to many researchers, various universities like Lancaster and University of Oxford to combat these problem of deepfakes. So how about you?
Well, so a lot of the work I do is with communities, villages, or they might be communities of business people or communities of policymakers. And one of the things that I'm really interested in doing is using arts-based research tools to research people's lived experience. And so one of them, I very recently took part in for me, it was a very powerful piece of research, actually, working with 12 female waste pickers from Kisumu in Kenya. And we used theatre making to research their lived experience. And we spent a week working together and we created 6 scenes. We then took that theatre to the United Nations Environment Assembly. They reported that it was the first time that they'd really kind of understood waste pickers' lives at all. We are seeing that just transition and conversation around integration of waste pickers into both discussions and the outcomes of the discussions has become more central to those negotiations.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see how it comes to life.
So why is research significant within a university?
We don't want our research to just stay in a library. And that's why I love working with businesses as well. And at the same time, for them, for businesses or local authorities or policymakers you mentioned, it's important for them to also work with us and learn from us because we do have the resources, we do have some knowledge.
Research at university is very important, as you said. Even if we produce a negative result, we understand this way is not correct. What is the other way we have to take?
Yeah, I mean, we've got all these students, haven't we? Thousands and thousands of young people who are coming through universities preparing for their futures. And I'd like to think that some of the research and innovation that we carry out here is preparing the future for our students as well. You know, there's some
it's true.
really significant problems that we're facing at the moment. So the more we can do to make the world a better place for our students as they move into it, then I'd be proud to be part of that.
Yeah, it is very nice. Yeah, go.